A mom friend who always finds a reason not to pay for meals. She invites me to go out and then leaves without paying, as if it's natural. I had become the one who always pays. One day, she invited me to a hotel and said, "Pay $1,500. I was confused and asked, "What are you talking about?" And she demanded that I pay for our share of the lodging. She was saying something so unreasonable. I'm still in shock, but I'm going to give her a dose of reality. I am Michelle, a 45-year-old office worker. I live with my husband of 18 years, our middle school daughter, and elementary school son. Since both my husband and I work, we share household chores. Whoever has free hands does the dishes, and we cooperate to manage our daily lives. My husband actively takes care of our kids, driving our daughter to her sports activities, playing catch with our son. He's a great father. I'm happy to spend time with such a considerate husband and cute children. Then one day, a person who shattered my peaceful daily life appeared. "Michelle, wanna go out for coffee sometime?" One morning, while I was taking out the trash, the one who spoke to me was my neighbor and fellow mom, Susan. "Good morning, coffee, you say?" I asked back, and she replied, "There's a cafe that opened nearby that sells delicious bread. I thought we might go together." Apparently, a trendy cafe that sells popular Korean bread had opened nearby. "Oh, I see," I said non-committally, but Susan was thinking to herself, "Oh, Michelle, you have work, right?" Yeah, and seemed to be considering something. Susan, a mom of my daughter's classmate, hadn't talked much before, but we'd had some interaction lately. "Let's go on Saturday." "Yes, that'll be good." Susan was excited, but I wasn't enthusiastic. To be honest, between work, housework, and childcare on weekdays, I want my 2 days off for family time. As I was thinking of refusing, Susan said, "On Saturday, your daughter has sports, and your son said he has plans with friends, so there's no problem, right?" I was surprised that Susan knew my children's schedules, and asked, "How do you know that?" She cheerfully responded, "I heard from David, who's in the same sports activities, that there's practice, and your son said he's going out to play." It became hard to refuse Susan, who was in such a good mood. "So, Saturday it is." She left after stating the date and meeting place, and I had committed to going to the cafe. Then Saturday came, and I was feeling down after working overtime. We were supposed to meet at the station, but Susan was nowhere to be seen even 10 minutes later. "Michelle!" I saw Susan waving from a distance, looking cheerful. "Oh, it's a bit chilly today," she said, without apologizing for being late, and talked all the way from the station to the cafe. When we arrived at the cafe, there was a surprisingly long line, even though it had only been open for an hour. "Oh my, lots of young people." Most of the other customers were young people. I suggested going to another store because of the long wait, but Susan stubbornly refused, saying, "No, I want to eat this bread." We waited in line for an hour. Finally seated, guided by the staff. "Phew, I'm tired." "Michelle, you should have gotten the drinks ready," Susan said. Holding back my frustration, I smiled and apologized. "Sorry for not being thoughtful." The bread at the cafe Susan had strongly recommended was indeed delicious, and I felt very satisfied. I thought about coming with my family next time. As we were about to leave, Susan said, "Excuse me, I need to go to the restroom," and headed to the toilet. After waiting 5 more minutes, feeling the stares of people in the waiting line, I paid the bill. Another 10 minutes outside, Susan came out of the shop, saying, "Sorry to keep you waiting. My stomach hurt a little." I asked about her condition, and she said, "I'm fine now," walking ahead of me. As I tried to speak, Susan cut me off and asked, "Hey, are you thirsty or something? What do you want? Come on, pick something." Even when I declined, she insisted, Come on. Push the button, hurry." I was almost forcibly told to choose, and so I picked some tea. "It's on me, enjoy your drink," she said, so I thanked her, and Susan was smug about it. Could it be that she thinks this will cover the cost of the coffee and the bread? I don't feel comfortable explicitly saying, "Please pay." Normally, wouldn't you ask the person how much it was? Feeling a bit uneasy, we arrived at the station before I knew it. Susan quickly went home, saying she had something to do. Since then, every time I was invited for tea, Susan would ditch the bill. Not only that, but she seems to be inquiring about my family's activities from other people. Meanwhile, she leaves her kids with her in-laws on Saturdays and Sundays and goes out with friends, hardly ever being at home. Lately, she has even been leaving her kids with us to go out drinking on weekday nights. She had been checking when we would be home to drop off her child. Bringing the child before dinner, she said. "Oh, is it dinner time? Well then, please take care of my child too." The child was happy to eat with us, saying it felt like siblings, but it wouldn't be the same for the adults. "Is your husband not home?" I asked, to which she replied. "He is on a business trip a lot, so he's not here right now. Take care, okay?" It seems her husband is away a lot for work. Hold on, at least pay for the food, please. Honestly, with 2 growing children, the cost of food can be quite a burden. It doesn't make much difference with just 2 more. Susan said, leaving, but any homemaker should understand. A month has already passed since we started living this way, and the kids are on summer vacation. On the way home, Susan from the neighborhood invited us to go out with our families. What should we do? On his way home from work, my husband had been approached by Susan. Since Susan's husband would be home, she invited us to go out during the holiday. If it's with the family, it's probably fine. If her husband is there, it shouldn't be a problem, right? I thought, with some apprehension. I don't know. But the kids seemed to be on board. It seems he had already mentioned it to the children, and it was set between them and Susan. "It depends on you and my schedule," he said. I was so dumbfounded by Susan's strong-arm tactics that I couldn't say anything. If the kids are looking forward to it, we have no choice. I contacted Susan, and we decided on the time and place while discussing the details, and the day finally arrived. "Hey, where's your husband?" Her husband, who was supposed to be there, was nowhere to be found. Unfortunately, he had to go on a sudden business trip. It seems Susan's husband won't be able to join, and it'll just be her and her 2 children. Then I'll follow behind. We drove separately to the destination. We arrived at a rental campground with fully equipped facilities, including cottages, and we were going to stay overnight and return the next day. While we were preparing the barbecue, the kids were already playing. Once everything was ready, we started grilling the meat. We had reserved food for 10, which was 2 extra servings. Since Susan's husband wasn't there, we had 3 extra servings, and I was worried that we might have too much. Breakfast is always the kids' favorite, but during the summer break, thinking of the menu for lunch and dinner is such a hassle, isn't it? We were just having a casual conversation, while Susan just sat there. "That's why, today we're just grilling meat. Easy peasy." My husband and I are busy preparing the barbecue and frantically grilling meat, while Susan just sits there, doing nothing, with a cool expression on her face. "We have to watch the kids properly, after all." She says this but only watches the children from afar. When I call the children to eat the grilled meat, she reaches out and takes it, saying, "Wow, that looks delicious." Oh. My children and I all wear surprised expressions, and Susan suddenly realizes. "Oh, is this for the children?" I was thinking of giving it to the children first, but it's fine since we're grilling more. The children look disappointed, and I thought Susan would apologize, but she just laughs and says, "You better eat quickly, or I'll eat it all up." My husband and the kids are utterly taken aback by this. And then there's Susan, eating even more meat than the growing children. We had planned 1 lamb chop per person, but she has already had 4 and is reaching for more. "Susan, you've reserved only 1 lamb chop per person. You've already eaten 2 extra ones for yourself and your husband, so please eat something else." It might seem like a trivial matter, but there's no substitute food because it's by reservation. What? There are restrictions on what I can eat. That's stingy, she said, to which I replied. Didn't you check when you made the reservation? She should have known exactly what and how much was available since we decided on it together. When we were planning, and we talked about ordering more because we have growing children, she said. I don't eat much, I have a small appetite. Just think of me as not there, and one extra portion should be fine. With my children who eat well and the men around, I thought it would be safe to order for 10 people. We had 2 middle school children who could eat 2 portions each, and 1 elementary school child who could eat 2 portions, so there shouldn't have been any problem with the amount. But the meat was disappearing quickly. Mom, I want to eat that meat, my son said, reaching for the meat he wanted, only to have Susan snatch it and eat it quickly. I was angry, but my usually mild-mannered husband was starting to show his irritation as well. The reason we couldn't strongly object was that Susan's children were also there. Mom, don't act like a child, said Susan's daughter. What are you talking about? Camping is all about survival, and survival means fighting over meat. The children seemed dumbfounded by Susan's childish behavior. Afterward, we finished the barbecue, played outside for a while, and then decided to take a break. The cottages were separate, so we could get away from Susan and catch our breath. It was supposed to be fun, but it's just so tense. My husband looked tired. Yeah, let's eat breakfast and head home early tomorrow. We spent the rest of the time relaxing with the family and greeted the morning. Good morning. Susan came out of her cottage cheerfully. Good morning. You're lively this morning, I replied, and she said, Of course. I ate a lot and relaxed, and had a great time. For breakfast, we ate the provided sandwiches, played a little more, and then started preparing to leave. During the final payment, Susan was nowhere to be found. Susan's not here, I told my husband, and we looked around, but Susan's children were also missing. Hey, where's Susan and her kids? I asked the children if they had seen her. They said they were going to the restroom. Apparently, Susan told her daughter she was going to the restroom, and told the children to go to the restroom before leaving. How would you like to handle the payment? Asked the cashier. Please wait a little longer, I replied, and after waiting 10 more minutes, Susan still hadn't returned. Isn't this taking too long? I went to check the restroom. But Susan and her children were nowhere to be found, and her car, which was supposed to be parked next door, was gone too. What? My husband also looked surprised. It seemed that Susan and her family had already left. I couldn't believe it. I was on the verge of exploding with anger. To invite us and then run away without paying, it was enough to drive me insane. The total cost of the camping equipment, cottage accommodation, drinks, meat, and everything else came close to $900. Susan had confirmed the approximate amount at the time of reservation, and she had been the one who chose the place. She had rejected all the places I suggested and insisted that this particular place was perfect. Choosing a location that only allowed on-site payment seems like a premeditated act now. We decided to head straight to Susan's house. Susan, please open up. After ringing the doorbell several times, Susan reluctantly opened the door. Susan, why did you leave without saying anything? I questioned. Huh? Didn't I say I was leaving? She pretended not to know. Susan, you have to pay on the spot. Hand over the money, I told her a bit forcefully. Oh, I forgot. But I don't have any money right now, Susan replied. We confirmed the amount in advance, didn't we? You were the one who set the budget, Susan. I hadn't mentioned it before, but I couldn't keep quiet any longer. But she kept saying she had no money, so I asked what was going on. I bought something I wanted before the camping trip. Look, she said, laughing and showing off what she had bought. So you didn't have any money during the camping trip? I asked, getting a bit irritated but continuing to question. Yeah, I didn't have it when I reserved, so what? I was fed up with Susan, who kept laughing without feeling sorry at all. You planned this from the beginning, I said, and she replied. Well, thanks to me inviting you, we had a great time. It's a win-win situation, isn't it? So I confirmed one last time. So you have no intention of paying? You're so persistent, it's embarrassing. I told you I don't have the money. When I get it, I'll pay you back. Or are you trying to squeeze money out of someone who doesn't have any? With no shame and an unapologetic attitude, Susan laughed, and I reached my breaking point.
I see, understood.
I went home without saying anything more and discussed the situation with my husband. Time passed, and Susan suggested,
Michelle, a tasty restaurant opened nearby. Let's go.
She acted as if the past incident never happened. I'm sorry, I'm busy, so I'll have to pass. I had been turning down Susan's invitations for the past few months. Losing patience, Susan approached me with an angry look.
Hey, are you avoiding me? You're still holding a grudge over the camping thing? A few $100 or a few $1,000, so what? I can't believe you'd avoid someone over that, even if it were several tens of thousands.
Susan ranted, infuriated and talking fast. Is that so? Susan, let's go to an inn next time. I suggested a trip to Susan.
Huh? Oh, sure, you planned it? In that case, I'll have to coordinate with my family.
Susan became cheerful. I told her my husband had given me some alone time and was thinking of going on a 2-night trip. When asked if my husband would mind taking care of the kids, I declined, saying he was busy. To the hesitant Susan, I said, I plan to stay for 2 nights from Friday. If it's difficult, I'll go alone. To which she replied,
Wait, in that case, I'll leave them with my in-laws.
Susan said she would leave them with her husband's parents and go on the trip. When I showed her the exterior of the inn, Susan became even more delighted. I'll book 2 rooms. There seems to be a spa and all. I told her about the inn, and Susan started to look up various things on her own.
How about I invite my friends too?
She said, so I told her I'd make the reservations all at once. A month later, the day of the inn reservation arrived. Susan and her friends were at my house, looking puzzled at me.
Aren't you going to drive us?
Sorry. I have to stop by my in-laws, so let's go separately. I said, and Susan reluctantly agreed, and we headed to the inn in different cars.
Wow, I can't believe we're staying at such a lovely inn. Michelle, thank you.
Everyone was amazed at the magnificence of the inn. Let's enjoy our free time then. Susan and her friends were having a great time, seemingly forgetting about me. The first day was just eating, bathing, and sleeping. After the bath, I ran into Susan and her friends having a huddled conversation. Hey, Susan. Are you sure about staying at such an expensive inn? Can you afford it? One of Susan's friends asked.
Yes, it's all on me.
Susan boasted.
Amazing. It's over $1,000 per person per night. So generous. In that case, I'll turn off notifications for texts and calls, and spend time in this dream world until we leave the hotel.
Susan said she would pay for 5 friends lodging in full, and everyone was getting excited. The morning of the second day, they went to the spa for massages, and were able to spend a meaningful time healing their everyday fatigue. I tried texting Susan, but she didn't read it or reply even by night. It seemed she was having a good time.
Hello, Michelle, it's morning already.
Cheerful Susan called. Yes, that's right. I replied, wondering why I was stating the obvious.
You overslept, so it's your fault, right? We're going home first, so pay $15,000.
Susan said something utterly unexpected. Huh? Oversleep? $15,000? What are you talking about? I didn't understand what she meant.
The last one always pays, right?
Susan said, so I replied. Yeah. I'm already home, though. Didn't you see my text? I had told Susan I was going home through text.
Oh, I wouldn't be looking at my phone in such a fabulous, unreal place.
I explained the situation to Susan. I went home on the second night. My mother-in-law seems to be feeling unwell, so I came to my parents' house early. Originally, I was only going to pick up the children and husband who were out playing, but as my mother-in-law wasn't feeling well, I decided to leave early.
Why didn't you say something?
Susan was angry. I told her that my husband contacted me late, so I texted her, and she asked.
What? What about the bill?
Thinking she was mad about me going home without paying my share, I said. Don't worry, I've already paid.
Oh, right, that's fine then. We just have to return the keys at the front desk and go home.
Susan said, her tone returning to calm. Well, yes. Since it's on-site payment, please stop by the front desk. My part has been properly deducted. If the front desk handled everything properly, there shouldn't be a problem, I explained.
You did pay, right?
Susan asked again. Yes, I paid my part before I left, so it's okay, I replied. However, Susan's next words made me uneasy.
What about our part?
With this question, I was sure that Susan intended to make me pay. Please pay for yourselves. I heard after the bath that Susan, you were going to pay for your friends, right?
Well, that's...
Susan stammered. You're amazing. Honestly, I thought you were the worst kind of person for always disappearing when it's time to pay. So you really were going to pay back the money for the camp later. I misunderstood you, Susan, I'm sorry. I joked, building her up.
Wait a minute.
I cut off Susan's protest and said, tell me all about your wonderful time when you get back. See you later. And I hung up the phone. When I got home, my worried husband asked, are you okay? But I smiled and said, yeah, I'm fine. Susan and the others seemed to have a great time. Later, Susan, who had invited her friends by saying,
I'll pay,
somehow managed to pay using multiple credit cards. When Susan returned, her complexion was very bad, unlike the last person she had met at the inn.
I never intended to pay,
she screamed as she went home. According to what the children heard from Susan's children, her husband, who had returned from a business trip, scolded her terribly.
You have to earn and pay that large amount of $15,000 yourself,
he said, and she seemed to have started working part-time. For Susan, who had been leading a sloppy life, leaving housework and childcare to others, it must be a very tough time. She seems to be working so hard that she has no time to rest, both physically and mentally. I no longer get invitations to play from Susan, nor do I have to look after her children, and I've been able to regain a peaceful daily life. On holidays, I can spend time leisurely with my family, and I'm very happy.